Well, good morning, everybody. I'm glad that everybody came today, even though it looks like there's not going to be a trial today. So I at least wanted to get up here and get on to let everybody know what the news is, in case you haven't heard yet. There's been some tweeting going on from the people inside the courtroom, some news reporters, and they've said that unexpectedly, there's some sort of reason why trial cannot go on today. So I still appreciate Grasshopper Mouse from coming from Oregon, Portland, Oregon, letting us know. You would have come and joined us in the trials, and Sean is here. Morning. Sean, actually, I was on NBC Boston last night. So heard BC on news last night. Very good, BC. Thank you very much. Everybody just gets a little taste of what you guys get for the entire day. So, yeah, I know the people at NBC Boston. I mean, at least I know a few people over there. And I got to know some of the people there, and they're great people. They're nice people. That's why I like to use their stream when we do live stream the trial. But unfortunately, right now, there is no trial to live stream. So not sure what the issue is. Some sort of unexpected, unforeseen, maybe something happened with there's many people involved with the case, maybe one of the witnesses. So, we don't know. But, I mean, that's unforeseen events. That's exactly what we heard, Shauna. No court today. NBC News, unforeseen event. That's right. Mud Rucker lets us know that Ted Daniel tweeted that they received an email about court being canceled for unavoidable circumstances. Yep. So, I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, I mean, yesterday's testimony was the end of Buchanan. And I know, different people are pronouncing it differently, which is why, it's just I'm not exactly sure how to say it at this point, because some people said Buchanan. I think Alan Jackson says Buchanan. Some people say Buchanan. Obviously, no disrespect. I just not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name. So don't get all worked up and upset if I don't say his last name correctly. Sarah Treeris, good morning, friends. Laurel Grant's a little sad. You know what we could do is, we could just keep the chat open, because you guys are great in the chat anyway. And we'll just play something like The Matrix. And, we can just sit here and put in the chat and talk about that. But it's so nice that so many people were going to come. good morning. MCT 2013, let's go. Sarah Tree says, I will be so sad if there's no court today. Well, I mean, I guess we're all a little bit sad here, but we can all still hang out in the chat. If you want, I can keep it open. We can watch some old runs of something. You can watch some old Brother Counsel episodes. I'll allow it. Says hi. James Gnarls, no court today, crying. A lot of people are crying. Is it official? Yeah. Sarah Treeris, maybe I'll watch old testimony and see how it compares if it's canceled. Well, it is canceled. We can definitely get on some old, some of the old clips. Everyone sees Yuri's Webster Dictionary. I love these names, Yuri's Webster's Dictionary says court is canceled. And then M57, let's go. Unfortunately, we'd love to go, but where are we going to go? Where are we going? That's the question, because there's no court today. Maybe some of you want to know about my hockey game last night at 10:15. But good morning from listening from Charlotte, North Carolina. Michelle Lee. No. I know. Jessica Lee. Everyone's finding out the news right now. Jessica Lee, how you doing in Atlanta? Morning. What? No trial today? No trial today. Last minute. It's canceled. And that's Rich. I'm sorry, but good morning, but there's no trial today. Anything could have happened, Laurel Grant. What are some scenarios that you've seen that's happened before? Anything can happen last minute. There can be a funeral. There can be someone's kid got sick, ended up in the ER. There's all types of things when, all of a sudden things can be canceled last minute. Mudrock, I'm going to have to actually focus on my job today. Did the court not consider my feelings? I wonder how much work is being neglected over this trial. I know that there's somebody on this the chat was saying that her and her boss, when customers come in to get all annoyed because they're not able to watch the trial anymore. LS, aka Chester's mom, love this channel. Thank you. Karen says, good morning. Saw you on NBC Boston. Great job. Thank you. Yeah, I was on NBC Boston last night. Sarah Tree says, tuning in while hanging out the allergists. Good old Michigan. Yeah, well, now's the season for those seasonal allergies where they start attacking you. Oh, I remember when I was a kid, they would attack me like crazy when I was a kid. And I used to take allergy shots. I don't even know if they do that anymore, but I used to get shots every single week or every other week. And then I would be put on medicine. I'm still taking medicine. Maybe I'm sharing too much information, though. Jessica Lee says maybe something nefarious. It depends how you pronounce nefarious. It's either nefarious or nefarious. Sticker Shock is still here, even though there's no trial. Good morning, brother Counsel from Texas at work, trying to listen as I work. Thank you so much. Lori B, praying everyone is okay. I actually have some work to do also, you know. Maybe I'll get some work done, Michelle Lee. Maybe. Not a bad idea. There may be some work that you've been neglecting. I've been trying to like sneak in like a few minutes here, a few minutes there on a break. After trial, I've been trying to like catch up on some stuff. But it may not be so bad to have a little bit of a break. Good morning, Krista Kirk. Turtle Boy has court today. Okay, well, Turtle Boy has court today. I'm not sure if it's going to be live streamed. Is it going to be live streamed? Jersey Tomato, hello, all in cyber. Benjamin Rollinson, maybe Hank Brennan has thrown in the towel. Last couple of sessions, he was showing symptoms of a man who hadn't previously known what he was getting into. The great Carsoni, love that you were on NBC 10 in Boston. Nice going. Thank you. Nice people there. Morning, y'all from LLE. Look what Lori B says. Y'all forced a Matrix stream on me the other night. And we didn't really talk much about the Matrix yesterday. I tried to stay away from that because I was afraid that people were getting a little annoyed with all the Matrix talk. So I stayed away from that. The Successful Human says Shalom from Boston. Shalom to you. And here's Debbie letting us know how to correctly pronounce Buchanan or Buchanan's name. It's Bukaka. Saw girl, why no court? No, we don't know. No one's letting us know. There's just there's unexpected reasons. Rosalba, good morning. What do you make of the interview in Karen Reed's parents' house, sitting on the couch? She never said that John. She saw him go into the house. That would have been KR's opportunity. Yeah. So, what that's gonna come down to is whether the jurors can believe that that's what actually happened. That's really, I mean, if she never said a word about John going into the house, I mean, you could explain it. You can try to explain it in a way that she was still in shock and she wasn't thinking clearly, and maybe that's why she didn't mention that part. But yeah, I mean, if you take Buchanan's word at face value and assume that she did not say anything about it, well, then there's some good reasons. You could definitely make an argument why they didn't feel that there's any reason to do a search of 34 Fairview if even Karen Reed said that he did not go into the house. So yeah, I mean, it's not a good fact. Again, it really comes down to the credibility of Ray Buchanan about that interview. So, but yeah, I mean, that was a good point for the prosecution, no question. So unfortunately, there is no court today, Krista. Yeah, there's no court. We keep letting everybody know about that. But I think we have such a great chat, and we have such a good time in the chat. We should probably just keep it open. Maybe just play some old clips or something. Here, Karen, we got the theories going wild. Maybe the Fed swung in and made arrests. Catskills are calling for Martin and Salomon to break out comedy duo. Elizabeth Savino, good morning. And again, I know that there's an attorney in Michigan with the last name Savino, and I was actually just talking to her yesterday. So great attorney, very nice attorney. I have a great relationship with her, but I don't know if there's any relationship there. UL7 Weenie, do you have any favorite cases? Are you talking about personal cases or like high profile cases? Not exactly sure. I mean, my own personal favorite. I mean, I've got some of my own cases, which I take a lot of pride in, and that I felt like I worked hard and got a good result. But those are personal cases. I don't think anyone's going to be interested in my personal caseload. Finally, a question about the hockey game last night. Pink Barracuda, did Brother Counsel win at hockey last night? Actually, we resulted in a tie. It was a tie, and there was no overtime because it was too late. So that was it. But it was a great game and got some exercise, which is really the point of all this at my age. Not really caring so much about the trophies, but I need to keep in shape somewhat. So it was a late game. Again, it started at 10:15 at night. We ended around 11:15. Got home, and unfortunately, because one of the main highways here is under construction, so makes everything longer. So I had to take a detour. By the time I got home, was pretty late. Time I got into bed, was able to calm down and fall asleep. Was, I don't know, 12:30, 12:45, and then I was back up at 6:30 this morning. So that's the day in a life. Day in a life in paradise. Larry Manor, brother man, brother man. Jerry, hope for dismissal. I don't think this is not a dismissal. That's not why court is being adjourned today. No, she's not been acquitted. Didada, that's not what's happening right now. Can I speculate about why court is canceled today? I mean, the possibilities are endless. Anything could happen. Anything can happen with Judge Cannoni. Anything can happen with any of the lawyers on this case and the lawyers' families on this case, and maybe some of the lawyer, the Reed family or the O'Keefe family. I mean, like there's really a whole bunch of different reasons why court can be canceled. Maybe the air conditioning broke. I mean, like the technology has some issues. There can literally be possibilities are endless. So. Here's a question, Vanessa Rich. Have you seen the microdots videos? So I haven't seen all of them. I did see the most recent one where they're analyzing the waterfall. If that's what you're talking about, Vanessa, I did look at that one when they were analyzing the waterfall video, which is interesting. It's interesting. Again, there's a lot of assumptions that are being made in the video, but I mean, it's an interesting breakdown of the waterfall video. Has Judge Cannoni still not said anything about the court asking her to compromise on the buffer zone yet? So, yeah, apparently there's some sort of order that came down about the buffer zone. It was too extensive, so it had to be limited. So at some point they're going to have to limit it. So I didn't hear anything from Judge Cannoni about it, but they're going to have to limit the buffer zone a little bit. So that's the extent of that, seems like. So everyone's asking why they canceled the court today, and I don't know. I can't tell you for sure why they canceled. All I can tell you is that the possibilities are endless. There's always things that can come up last minute that can cause you to adjourn court. Pilo's mom, Higgins lied to grand jury in trial 1. He said he moved cars and did not. He said he butt dialed, yet we saw him on the phone. What happens to the liar? Thank you, brother counsel. Well, I did see that maybe he did move one car. Like there were some suggestions that he did maybe move one car. I know there seems like there was 3 cars, and maybe there's a car around the back, that all the way in the back of the video, which he could have moved. So possibly he did move a car. In terms of the butt dials, again, the butt dials was his testimony about the butt dials was the butt dials at 2:22 in the morning. And the video that we saw yesterday was the video at around 1:30 in the morning, 1:35 in the morning. That's when he was talking on the phone or holding the phone close to his face, whether he's listening to a voicemail or ordering pizza or calling Brian Albert or calling other people, whatever. We're not sure. But yeah, we did see that when he's on the phone. So we'll see what happens in cross-examination. Nothing's going to really happen. Okay. Nothing's really going to happen to Brian Higgins. That's just, I mean, the bottom line is about what he testified to. It doesn't, perjury is almost never prosecuted, and it's difficult to prove. But I get your point, and he'll definitely be impeached when he takes the stand on the comments that he made in the grand jury, if and the suggestions that he was not on the phone and didn't call anybody. So we'll see. Yeah, Mary Midendorf. Oh no, now I have nothing to look forward to on my dreadfully boring commute. I know someone's going to take like a 6-hour drive today. Jennifer Rawson, good morning from Alabama. What? Yeah, you heard right. Norman Shapiro says, good morning from Jerusalem. The wife will be happy. I won't be glued to the trial for one midweek night. Yeah, she will be. Maybe you can pick up some things around the house. Lori B, I fear we are no longer ahead of schedule, and I think kind of agree with you, and especially since, remember, every single day after trial, Judge Cannoni was telling everybody that we are ahead of schedule, or we are on schedule. And even though we're ending earlier, even though tomorrow's going to be half a day or whatever it is, we're on schedule. And yesterday she didn't say a word about that. And I think because I don't think anyone was expecting Buchanan, or however you want to pronounce his last name, as it's taking 3 days. There's no reason at all that testimony had to take 3 days. No reason at all. So it's only because he was being so evasive on the stand that we were getting that type of testimony. So I don't think we're ahead of schedule, and we may not be even on schedule anymore. So Kelly Goodwin listening from Sanford, North Carolina. Larry Amanda, very suspicious. Vanessa Rich, maybe someone could have gotten bitten by a dog. Yeah, I mean, hopefully everyone's okay. Like the successful human says, hopefully everyone's okay. Hopefully it's just a little glitch or something, or maybe some technology or air conditioning or technology issue. Yeah, something like that. So everyone should know there's no court today. Okay, there's no court today, and everyone can start catching up on all the work that you've been neglecting, whether it's housework, whether it's work at the office. Mud Rucker has terrible allergies. I had terrible allergies growing up. I still don't have great allergies, but they're somewhat under control with the medication that I take. Millie Rivera, good morning, beautiful peeps. Brother, I still need that work excuse. Yeah, Pichet, I'm sorry. Court's canceled. Sarah says, I'm doing the allergy shots. Streaming court has been a nice distraction. Yeah. When you take allergy shots, I remember when I was a kid, and when I was taking allergy shots, they give you a shot, and then you'd have to wait in the office for 20 minutes to make sure you don't have any adverse reaction. So that was always fun. Good afternoon from the UK. Blurry Lights, our wonderful moderator, says, I love our time together, and I love our time apart. The anticipation is great. Christina V says, can we rewatch the highlights from the first trial, like some of Higgins' testimony? And maybe if you guys want to do that, we'll do that. Nick Key, I think that's how you say that. There's a little break there in between the N-I and the K-I. So I'm not trying to pronounce that, but if it's Nikki, good morning, everyone. And RN reminds us that at Brother Counsel, you could also say that virtually every witness has said police have lied or omitted things on their reports. Like, for example, there's no report that says that Karen ever said, I hit him. So there's been things that are left out of the report. So maybe that's another thing that was left out of the report. The fact that she told, or possibly told, Buchanan and Proctor that John O'Keefe did go inside the house. Possibility. What do you think about the grass stains on the jeans? I feel like they are asking us to suspend logic with the car hit. He skid on his butt. Sure, Jan. So yeah, what about those grass stains? I mean, the suggestion there would be that somehow when he was hit and landed that way, he rubbed his backside on the grass and got some grass stains there as he fell from being hit by the car. I think that's the suggestion there. And also trying to show that he was not put on top of snow. He was put on top of the ground, so it would be on the grass, not on top of the snow. UL7, we need Brother Counsel. Our lawyers friends outside the court. You think AJ and Hank are cool outside the court? Okay, so I'll tell you from me personally. I would say 90% of the lawyers that I go against, we get along just fine outside the court. In fact, I do a lot of civil work these days, and I actually get referrals from the attorneys on the other side. Sometimes they'll have a friend, or they'll have someone that was involved in some sort of incident, and they need representation. And because they've dealt with me, representing them, other people, and they're defending the case, so they think I'm good, and therefore they'll refer me cases. Now I can't, obviously I can't pay them anything, obviously, for that, and they can get a portion of the fee, but usually defense attorneys, plaintiff counsel, which is what I do mostly now, civil work, we get along great. We get along fine. And I'm good friends with a lot of the attorneys on the other side. And of course, in court, we have a job to do. So it doesn't, just because we can go out and get lunch after court, but it doesn't, in court, we're representing people or clients, and we are fierce advocates for our positions. So, I mean, there was an attorney that I had, a great trial attorney, a great trial attorney. I tried a case against him, and in court we were battling it out, and outside of court we were completely cool with each other. And I'm still friends with him to this day, and he's a great trial attorney. In fact, I put him on one of my references when I was applying to the New Jersey bar, because they ask you for a whole bunch of different references. And I decided, I'll put on some plaintiff attorneys, I'll put on some defense attorneys. And that's what I did. So therefore, I would say that 90% of them, we get along great outside of the court. And it doesn't at all, by the way, take away from our ability to represent our clients in the fierce way that I do. But it's just common. And I think it makes for a better working relationship. And but there will be that 10% who take their job a little too seriously, and they think that they have to be my adversary even outside of court, and they will, they'll never get lunch with me, or they'll never go, have a drink with me, or have a coffee with me, or just talk friendly. It's there's always going to get 10% of that. But most attorneys, even if they're against each other, can get along just fine outside of court. We both understand. It's a certain maturity, I think. You just both understand that we have a certain job to do, and we have to represent our clients in the way that we need to. But it doesn't mean that we can't be friends outside the court. So that's number one. Do I think Alan Jackson and Hank Brennan are cool outside the court? Well, part of this also is that part of it is depends on also how you try your cases, and what type of motions you file, and things like that, and what you say about the other counsel in your motions and briefing. So when you try to call out the other attorney about something, and you try to get the other attorney in trouble, nobody likes that. No one appreciates that. And you don't really need to do that in order to represent your client always. So for example, there are certain times, let's say you'll be asked for a courtesy, common courtesy. And most of the time you'll be able to give it. But if there's a courtesy that can somehow compromise your representation, so then I can like you, I can really, really like you as a person, and I'd love to do this for you on a personal level, but because I have a client and it's going to be somewhat adverse to my client, I cannot extend that courtesy to you. So you have to understand the line. I think most lawyers that have been practicing long enough understand what courtesies they can extend, what they can't, and we all understand we're doing our job. But in this specific case, it's very adversarial. You see a little bit calling each other out, so that it can get a little touchy there. And also, let's remember that Alan Jackson, this is his only interaction with Hank Brennan, and probably will be his only interaction with Hank Brennan. And therefore, it's not as necessary to kind of get along. When I'm dealing with these attorneys, I'm usually going to see them again on another case. As big as Michigan is, but in the lawyer community, we kind of all end up knowing each other. So if I don't see you on this case, I'm going to see you on the next case, and we're going to see each other so often that it's worthwhile to get along, because we're all going to need courtesies. We all need some professional courtesies to each other, and of course, you're always going to get those people who refuse to extend courtesies, but most of the time, we understand that. And since I know I'm going to be seeing you on other cases, I try to get along with you, so that we're friends, and that you'll extend the courtesies to me. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying I'm not sure on Alan Jackson and Hank Brennan outside the courtroom, outside the courthouse. Also, I mean, they've been working for such a long time together, but it's kind of been very adversarial, and they've been doing a lot of work. So I don't know, what their interactions are like outside of court, but I would imagine that they're both professionals and they both can get along just fine outside of court. Scott Baxter, I have a question that I sent you yesterday. I'm sorry if I missed it, regarding John's phone. Correct me if I'm wrong. There is a GPS data on John's phone for 32 steps. Why is there no GPS from the house to the lawn? Now, why is there no GPS from the house to the lawn? Well, again, there's Apple Health data, which tracks how many steps you take. So that's what you're referring to. I think there was 84 feet in was it 36 steps? Not sure if 32 steps. Okay, but something like that. So there was those steps are recorded and also flights being climbed and recorded. Now you want to know about the GPS data. The GPS data, what I've seen and understand from the GPS data from Ian Whiffen is that there's some coordinates that it can track. So like you saw that within that big white circle, that's technically where the phone could have been located based on the GPS data. So it's a different data point. Those steps don't necessarily correlate with the GPS data. So we did see that it was possible based on the GPS data that phone was from the location data was somewhere within that white circle or that black circle, if you remember from Ian Whiffen's testimony. Now, there was one point that Ian Whiffen brought out, which I think was a very, very important point, which helps the prosecution by the fact that there's a longitude and latitude. And according to him, the longitude and latitude did not change at all the entire night. And if the phone would have moved, then you would have seen a change in the longitude and latitude, meaning even though potentially, based on the location data, the phone could have been anywhere within the white circle, which would include the house, by the way, but he would have expected the longitude and latitude to change at some point if it moved. And part of his testimony was that the longitude and latitude did not change. So I hope I'm answering your question, and that's from what I understand. Mudrocker says, yes, I will watch old clips and hang out. Okay, well, if you all want to hang out, we can definitely watch some old clips. If you're just joining us now and you're wondering why there's no court, well, there's no court. We don't know. All we know is that we got these last-minute emails that people are like Ted Daniels and the other journalists inside the courtroom are letting us know that there's just no court today. So Mary said, I heard there was an unexpected death. So like that's the type of thing that can happen, an unexpected death. So unfortunate. Hopefully, if that's what happened, then we feel sorry for whoever lost that sibling or family member. But that's what can happen. Sometimes it happens. I guess we'll find out more details as the day goes on. Nikki says, let's watch The Matrix. I think I gotta get some copyright issues straight out with the Matrix movie to make sure that we were able to watch it all together, because I don't want to get sued by whoever made that movie, like Universal Studios or whatever it is, and their team of lawyers. So, but it's definitely something that we should all do at some point. Mr. Alessis Thesaurus says, let's watch Proctor's testimony from the first trial. Brita Simpson, is this unusual? It's not unusual. No, there's always last-minute things that can happen. Kevin P says, let's watch The Matrix together. I love it. I'd love to watch The Matrix together. I'm just not sure if we can. I don't want to get into any trouble about that. Christine really wants to watch old clips since I didn't watch Trial 1. She didn't watch Trial 1. Judy V says, good morning, Brother Counsel. I like your hockey sweater. It would only look better in Blackhawks colors. Well, it's not a sweater. It's actually a real jersey that I didn't wear that jersey, but I wore the same exact jersey just with a different number and a different last name at a hockey tournament. It was just this past year. And if you did not join the channel before, then it was a hockey tournament that I played in. It's to benefit a very special charity, and you're going to hear about it next year. Don't worry about it. You're going to be hearing about this very special charity that I play for and raise some money for, and it's called RCCS, and I play every year. So if I'm physically able to, it's a day of a lot of hockey, and it's a lot of fun, and it's for a great organization and a great cause. So that's where you get that. And I guess you're a Blackhawks fan, And I gotta say, since you're a Blackhawks fan, I really want to see some more highlights from Connor Bedard. We really gotta, what's going on with that guy? Elizabeth Savino, no relationship with me and your friend. We're all from the New York area. Okay, well. What position does Brother Counsel play? I usually play either center or wing. That's what I play. Forward. Celtics took a big blow last night. Okay, I haven't been following the NBA as much, so. Here's the question, Willow. What did Higgins do at the police station? And that's a good question. What did he do there? What was he doing there? Was he getting the keys? Was he switching the keys? Maybe he left the keys there. That's why he was going inside the court. I don't know. Was that what he was doing? That's part of the question. What was he doing there? So he claims that he had to move the car. But then he was also moving stuff from his vehicles to the Jeep. And he had one point, it looked like he had some sort of bag with him that he was transferring from one of his vehicles to his Jeep. Courtney Good said, someone said there may be that 11 a.m. Zoom hearing this morning. Katie Katz says lawyers are at the courthouse. They're saying canceled all week. Is that what we're hearing now, that they're canceled all week? Eminem says, oh no, I was watching yesterday's trial. Oh, I missed 12 minutes of you, brother. There's not much that you missed today because we're just kind of like seeing what's going on, seeing what the chat's talking about. Maybe we'll play some old clips, but NBC 10 just reported no court today. Georgiana Francis says a tie is like kissing your sister, meaning a tie in any sport. So unfortunately we tied, and I know, I agree. There's got to be, it's better to lose than to tie. So, but what do you want, Andrea Burkhardt has put up a poll for, is it Brian Higgins or Brian Albert in that video from yesterday? Chester Chan, a Brother Counsel, just wondering, how many suits do you own? Okay, well, this is actually interesting because I know it's funny. Who cares about how many suits I own? But when I was clerking for a judge, my first year in law school, so after my first year in the summer, a lot of times you try to get internships, clerkships. So I was working that summer for a judge, and it was a great judge. I learned a ton from him. I mean, it was such a great experience. I learned a lot. I used to read everything that was filed in his court. We would discuss it. It was a great experience. Well, we spoke about everything. Me and this judge and I. We spoke about everything from the top, everything under the sun that has to do with law. So we, aside from all the issues that were coming up in trial and everything like that. So one of the things that I asked him is that, how many suits do you need to own as a lawyer? So he said, well, you need one for every day of the week. You need one for every day of the week. You need one for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So you need at least 5 suits. That's what his position was, because you don't want to wear the same suit twice. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll take that advice with me. And so I try to, but I need a little bit more than that, because I also wear a suit on the weekends, and I wear a suit on Sunday, as you guys know. I don't even own a pair of jeans. Okay, just to be frank and honest with you, I don't own a pair of jeans. So I was I have just about 7-8 suits right now, maybe. And my brother Solomon, Brother Counsel, always makes fun of me for how little suits I have, how few suits I have. He always thinks I need more suits and mix it up. And he doesn't like how my ties are so dull. He thinks they're dull. He wants me to spice up my ties. So maybe I'm just dressed a little bit more conservatively. But yeah, he's a little more fun with his suits and his ties. However, when he's in trial, he's very careful to, dress a certain way. But generally, he likes to have a little more fun with his suits. So I think I've got around, I don't know, maybe 8 suits, 7, 8 suits. So I think that holds me well. A.H. Edgecliff, Sydney, Australia, sending thanks to BC. Dwayne, hello, it's great to be here. Look, everyone's here. May as well do something. So maybe we'll do something. Let me just try to get through some of these chats. Ella is here from Ireland. Ella Lee has dishes. You have dishes to do, so you can put on the dishes, put the AirPods in. I didn't hear this yet. That's funny. I've been covering this case for a while. Mad Marsha says, I bid him. I actually never heard that. That's pretty funny. And Jennifer Ross says, I'm actually recovering from ankle surgery. Ooh, what type of surgery did you have? Was it trimallear? Did you have a trimalleolar fracture? Did you have an open reduction internal fixation? I've dealt with a lot of broken ankles in my practice, so hopefully it's not too bad. And I know that surgery can sometimes take a long time to recover from that. Scott Baxter wants to know, are you going to be here all day? I was planning on being here all day. I mean, I definitely was planning on being here all day. But now that we don't have court, I'm thinking I'm starting to eye the mounds of work that I've been ignoring and not getting along to. You look exhausted. Come on. Do I really look that bad? Well, look what we here from Laurel Grant that just saw on Twitter that the cancellation of today's testimony was a game time decision, that the prosecution team is actually there, and several others that just learned of the cancellation as well. So apparently this was a surprise to the prosecution. Jessica Lee says Trooper Buchanan was exhausting. I could use a day off. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel like that way, but I really wanted to keep going. I wanted to keep the trial moving. Gina says, if you're bored, you can cover Tilboy's hearing at 2 p.m. Well, really, I really keep thinking in the back of my mind that I should really get some work done that I've been pushing off. Brother Counsel, but do you babysit their children? Whose children? Monrucka, like hockey players fight on the ice and then have each other over for the backyard cookouts. Right. I mean, you have a job to do on the ice, you have a job to do in the courtroom, and then afterwards, you can all hang out at the barbecue and grab a beer in a red Solo cup if you want. But apparently Turbo motion to dismiss is at 2 p.m. today, so maybe we can do that. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm getting way behind on the chats here. But thank you, Maureen Mayer, even though there's no trial today. Thank you for that. And let me just see if there's another question or two. Patrick Winders, BC, where are the load of footprints from the gang doing JOK in between the house and the lawn? Let's listen to the Star Trooper Proctor's testimony from the first trial. So here's a question, and I know that Hank Brennan was bringing this point out, and that was, well, did you see any footprints in the snow? Well, the question is going to be, let's just assume that he was beaten up in the house for a minute. Okay, let's just take that scenario with us, and play with it. When did this all happen? And if it happened still earlier on in the night, let's say it happened at 12:50. Let's say it happened at 1:15, 1:30. So there wasn't a lot of snow on the ground yet. So if they took him out, number one, maybe they carried him. Number two, maybe they dragged him, but the snow already, by the time it was 6 o'clock in the morning, the snow already covered that all up. So the fact that there's no footprints is very possible that it was snowing. And if they did it earlier enough in the night, then by the time 6 a.m. rolls around, then there's no footprints to be seen. So I guess that could work with their theory. Just letting you know. And Mabila Quintanilla says, I tune in from San Salvador, El Salvador. Rumor is Karen Reed's father passed away? Not confirmed yet. He looked fine. Was he sick? And then again, Philip Watkins, rumor is Karen Reed's father passed away. Well, I hope that's not true. That would be terrible. Richard Populus, brother Counsel in your eyes, who is ahead? Thank you. Well, again, this is what you have to think. I mean, you have to, the question really is whether the jury believes any of these witnesses. If they believe the witnesses so far, then the Commonwealth is ahead, right? Now, I'm not saying that Alan Jackson's not doing a great job in cross-examination. They are definitely poking holes in the Commonwealth's case with every single witness. But all we've seen are witnesses for the prosecution. There's still problems that they already brought out in cross-examination, but we haven't heard from the ARC of witnesses yet, right? We haven't heard from Marie Russell. We haven't heard from this new expert that's going to testify about John O'Keefe's injuries not being consistent with falling back on the floor. So there's, we haven't heard it from the defense. They didn't put on their case yet. But I would tell you that, generally speaking, I would say that by this point, the prosecution's case is usually much more convincing. Okay, so usually when the prosecution goes first, they have very strong witnesses, and they're way ahead. Whereas in this case, I would not say that they're way ahead. They've put on the witnesses, and if the jury believes them, then they can definitely be ahead, if you want to say that. But I mean, the cross-examination so far in this case has been masterful. It's been a clinic. And the way that Alan Jackson is poking holes in their case and creating some reasonable doubt is really, that's what he's doing. I mean, it's really nice to watch, nice to see, just to see the skill involved and the issues that he's bringing up. So, that's really my analysis here. Now, Gina has another rumor Karen is sick. So here's another thing they say Karen is sick. Okay, hopefully it's not Karen Reed's father. I mean, he looked okay in court. Does anybody know that if he's battling anything in court? Like, is he sick with something? John Sweden, why would they lie in such detail about the Jeep? The Jeep was clearly in the driveway, but they tried really hard to place it in the street. My theory is that John O'Keefe hit head on the plow during a fight. Very interesting theory. I think that's the first time I heard of this theory. Because remember, he's got some sort of blunt force trauma to the back of his head. And there's like some sort of laceration there. And which is why they're going to have some expert. The defense is going to have an expert, which we heard about in opening statements. Alan Jackson said that they're going to have some sort of expert that say that this injury could have only happened with a raised surface, meaning not a frozen ground. So here, John has a theory that Brian Higgins' Jeep, since it had that plow in the front, maybe they got into some sort of altercation and he ended up falling backwards onto his plow. Okay, that's an interesting theory. But why are they trying really hard to place it in the street? I'm not sure, but again, I think Brian Higgins testified in the first trial that he did not park in the driveway. He parked on the side of the street. So maybe they have to corroborate with Brian Higgins. And that's why Jennifer McCabe said that she saw the Jeep, right? Now, the problem with that is that Ryan Nagel didn't see the Jeep. And Ricky D'Antano did not see the Jeep, and neither did Heather Maxim. So where was the Jeep? And why is everybody saying that it was on the street when you have other people, other witnesses saying that it wasn't on the street? So, I mean, look, maybe these are people that missed the Jeep the same way they missed the body. If you can miss the body in the front lawn, then maybe you can miss the Jeep. SP, I'm late, but did someone slide a note under your door? Yes. If you want me to get that, I'll get it. Okay. Yes, it looks like it is a envelope. If that was bothering you, I got the envelope. They know just to slide things under my door. So, because sometimes I'm on lives with you guys. So, okay. So I'm seeing some more rumors that Karen is sick. Rumors are a death or Karen is ill. Press is still out front of the courthouse. Marja Maxfield, Brother Counsel, I own a custom menswear business in Southern California, and all the lawyer clients get 2 pairs of trousers with their suits. A very smart move, actually. I should do that. Maybe you can send me a coupon. Catland, will the attorneys take the time to strengthen and strategize? Let me tell you something. When you're in trial, every extra minute that you get is valuable. So I'm sure that the attorneys are using every minute extra to their advantage. Now look at this from Ashton Butler. New here from Mississippi. I spent hours watching your recap videos and finally got caught up last night and was looking forward to watching live with you today. Bummer. I know, that is a bummer. I'm sorry about that. And hopefully we'll be back on tomorrow. I hope that note under your door. Okay, seems like a lot of people saw that note come under the door. But no, it's not urgent. It's just just an envelope. Just mail. Okay, Nikki here is saying that Karen is sick. Someone said maybe Zoom at 11. Okay, we'll find that out. Okay, someone on Twitter said they heard there might be a Zoom hearing or testimony at 11. I guess it's the kids. Here's a suggestion from Mo Jacobson. I think you should team up with lawyer you know. You both are great at doing the same. It would be great if you can have a live chat together. And like I've said, I told you guys before, I did reach out to him once. I mean, I sent him an email in his regular email that he posts on his YouTube channel, letting him know that a lot of people want to see us together and collaborate. And I haven't received a response. So if anybody has a more direct line to lawyer you know, I'd be happy to speak with him and talk to him and share ideas, share thoughts. Maybe we'll disagree about some things. Okay, a lot of people saying that Karen Reed is sick. It almost sounded, by the way, when you were listening to Alan Jackson, it almost sounded like Alan Jackson had a little cold or he was battling something. Tom Price wants to know, what is RCCS? Okay, you're going to hear plenty about RCCS in a couple of months when I'm going to be playing for them for that organization. It's a charity, and it's a charity that helps families that are battling cancer. So it's a family member that has been stricken with cancer, and they help support that family. They support them in every which way that they can. They can help them get them to the right doctors, to the right specialists. When someone gets cancer, apparently there's, thank God I don't know, and hopefully I never will, but it's a whole minefield of specialists and what type of cancer and what type of treatments, and there's so much overwhelming information that people that don't really know what they're doing can really be chasing their tail for a long time. So this is an organization that has experts in that. They know exactly how to help the families out, just provide the support. They also sometimes help out with the finances, and it's just a very, very special organization. They really step in and hold that family by the hand to help them navigate all the complexities of dealing with cancer. So that's the organization that I play hockey for and raise some money for. So you'll hear about it later in the year, probably. Never better. But you see, I keep thinking that if Bukaki has such a twisted take on the relationship between Karen and Higgins, how can he effectively do his job overall? Well, that's exactly the point that Alan Jackson was bringing out. That was exactly the point, that he didn't even understand that there was a motive possibly for Brian Higgins to confront John O'Keefe, for them to have some sort of discussion about Karen Reed. And it seemed that Brian Higgins was not quite over Karen Reed as much as Karen Reed was over Brian Higgins. And again, it didn't seem like Brian Higgins had any girlfriend in his life at that point. Kind of a loner. And Karen Reed, he liked, and he said that he liked her from the jump and thought that she was hot and had a great personality, and he wanted her. And it seems like he just wasn't sure how to navigate the situation with John O'Keefe. And then when she kind of started blowing him off and ghosting him, he did not seem to be done and wanted to continue that, exploring that option. And if you don't understand that can be somehow a motive, then yeah, that's exactly what Alan Jackson was pointing out. And that's exactly what he wanted the jury to understand. Shrimp at Brother Counsel, if KR is not guilty, will the case be reopened to find John O'Keefe's murderer? In that case, who handles the future investigation, since the Commonwealth will be deemed unreliable from this case? Well, I have news for you. If Karen Reed is found not guilty, then that's going to be the end of it. Okay? You can't, what are they going to do? Search 34 Fairview now? It's too late. So unfortunately, I think that if Karen Reed is found not guilty, then the real killer will not be brought to justice, unfortunately. And it's a shame for John O'Keefe to not have justice brought. He was a Boston cop. By all accounts, he was a great guy. He adopted his niece and nephew and took care of them. And it's just a shame. It's just a shame what happened. And I think I think everyone's seeing that the investigation could have been done a little bit more thoroughly, and maybe had some more suspects, and maybe more leads followed up. And maybe it wouldn't just be Karen Reed that they're looking at, but maybe there's somebody else that they'd be looking at. I understand why, Karen Reed has to be investigated. I think everyone would agree that given the scenario, she does have to be investigated. But the fact that there was another Boston cop there, Brian Albert, and all these other people that were connected to police and law enforcement, and it looks like there was some preferential treatment there. And therefore, certain leads weren't followed up. And there's a problem. So I think that if Karen Reed gets acquitted, I don't think this case is going to go anywhere. I think that's going to be the end of it. And that's it. Teresa says her father is fine. Okay, hopefully Karen Reed's father is fine. Lady Finch, AJ did seem like he didn't feel good yesterday. Yeah, I was noticing that from him having to clear his throat and the way that he was asking questions. Jennifer Ross and Brother Counsel, you're transitioning from my phone to the big TV now. Okay, that's great. Kristen from Manhattan, hit the like. And again, I know there's a gavel there, but unfortunately, I don't know why on StreamYard doesn't show my emojis. And by the way, and speaking about emojis for the members, I'm getting some more emojis to upload because apparently people like to use the emojis. So we're going to be uploading some more emojis so that the members can have fun with the emojis. Hey, look at this. Making changes says I saw Brennan, Mr. O'Keefe, and John's niece and nephew and Tully. I'm out front of the courthouse. So look at that. This is someone who's outside in front of the courthouse. He or she saw Mr. O'Keefe and John's niece and nephew and Lieutenant Tully. So those maybe were the next witnesses that were going to be called. And they're out front of the courthouse. So and Teresa reminds us that Brian Albert ripped up his basement floor. So no point of searching the house really at that point. Time Sticking asked the $1 million question. Where did the dog bites come from if he got hit by the plow? Makes no sense. He had to be inside or in the backyard. Yeah. I mean, that the arm, the abrasions on the arm, which definitely look like a dog attack. You got to figure out with this theory, you got to figure out how the dog is involved. And remember, in the morning, nobody remembers the dog anywhere. So was the dog outside the whole night and somehow it came and attacked John when he was being attacked by something else? Did the dog come and chase him? And then when he was running away, he landed on Brian Higgins' Jeep or something, and then was bitten by the dog or something. I don't know. Turtle Girl says Jessica Machado posted a credible source saying Karen is sick. I have Crohn's. It's brutal from Raw D. Sorry for that. And that's what Karen Reed has, right? She has Crohn's and MS. I mean, it's got to be brutal. Colin 4051 says, "Good morning. I find Alan Jackson extremely unlikable and arrogant. Does that play a factor in how the jury decides things?" Okay, I mean, if the jury thinks that he's extremely unlikable and arrogant, of course, because then you won't listen to him as carefully, and you'll just have opinions about him, and you'll think it's all one big show. But I personally don't think that. He may be arrogant, but I don't think it's coming across that way. I think what is coming across is that he's doing a good job questioning witnesses and cross-examining witnesses. But of course, it can play a factor if that's how if the jury thinks like you, Colin, then of course it's going to play a factor in how the jury decides things. And if you're just joining, I'm getting some questions about who won the hockey game last night. Unfortunately, the hockey game was a tie. That's how we ended last night. It was 11-15, and in this league, if it's a tie, you remain a tie. You don't go into overtime or shootouts or anything like that. So it was a tie. I had a few chances to win the game, but unfortunately, couldn't put it away myself. So. Here's another $1 million question. Brother Counsel, in the event of another hung jury, is it reasonable to file charges again? Or does the Commonwealth stop this nonsense? Okay. I personally think, I know that the DA's office said that they will try her as many times as it takes. But I think that if they do not get a conviction this time around, they're going to give up. I just, after everything they've gone through again with trial 2 and getting so many more experts involved and getting an accident reconstructionist, if they still can't get a conviction, I just think that they should give up. I think at that point they should really give up. So I think that this trial, whether it's going to end as an acquittal or whether it's a hung jury, I think that's going to be it. And quite frankly, I think that the taxpayers in Massachusetts are going to be very upset if they have to pay for another trial, and it's not a good use of their money. We know already that they're paying Hank Brennan over $200,000 to try the case, and on top of all the other expert fees and costs and whoever else is working on this case and resources that are being used to prosecute this case. So I just don't think they're going to retry it again for a third time. I really don't. If it's a mistrial. Douglas Vine, VC, I came in just as you were talking about the cancer cause. I didn't hear the name of the charity. I've been giving monthly to St. Jude's for many years. We should do our part to help someone. Absolutely. So I'll tell you, look, I mean, I'm going to be playing for them again, brother. RCCS. I usually play for them. Usually the game is around February time. So I'll start probably getting my page up and set up around, I don't know, when do they do that? Around November time, maybe. So if you can hold off till then, it would be helpful for me because I have to raise a certain amount of money. And of course, I'll let everybody know about the organization. You'll have a link, and it's a tremendous special cause. So many people have suffered from cancer, and I think it's probably fair to say that there hasn't been a family yet that has some sort of connection with somebody in their family or extended family or that's dealt with cancer. And what it does for a family and what type of roller coaster it puts them on is terrible. So any way that you can help out these organizations is they're doing really special work. They're really doing God's work. So hey, brother Counsel, what about a cold case unit to investigate? I'm assuming you're talking about the John O'Keefe's death if Karen Reed is found not guilty. Canton refused to investigate, also refused to investigate Birchmore. I think they're done. I mean, look, they had their person. They're trying to pin it on Karen Reed, and that's who they believe did it. And if they can't get a conviction, then what their excuse is going to, I imagine what their position is going to be is that they believe Karen Reed did it and they just can't get a conviction because she has, too many good lawyers and ways to get her out that they create reasonable doubt, but they still believe that that's their person. And therefore they're not going to waste any more resources investigating the case in any other way. So that's just what I think is going to ultimately their position is going to be if Karen Reed gets acquitted in this case. Jody Arrington, if KR is acquitted, will she still have to battle the civil suit from the O'Keefes? The answer to that is yes, because remember, there's different burdens in the criminal system and the civil system. In criminal system, in order to win, you have to prove your case beyond a reasonable doubt. In the civil system, all you have to prove is your case is by preponderance of the evidence, which means more likely than not. The way I explain this is 51% over 49%. So as long as it's more likely that she hit him with the car, then the O'Keefes can still recover money damages for wrongful death. Now, part of that lawsuit also is something called the Dram Shop. Dram Shop is they're suing C.F. McCarthy's and the Waterfall for serving Karen Reed alcohol when she was visibly intoxicated. So the Dram Shop the Dram Shop claim is a crapshoot. They're not going to get anywhere with that, in my opinion. The only question is if they're going to be able to convince the jury that she more likely than not hit John O'Keefe, and they don't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And if they're able to prove that she more likely than not hit John O'Keefe with her car, then they're able to collect money damages for wrongful death. So that she is still going to go on. So this is not over for Karen Read. Once the criminal case is over, she's still going to be fighting that civil case. And in fact, there's a stay in that civil case right now that Karen Read's deposition cannot be taken, and it's kind of stayed until this criminal case is done. But as soon as it's done, the civil case is going to pick up. Now, I will tell you that if I was on the civil case, and I do a lot of civil work, okay? I do a lot of civil work. If I'm on the civil case and I'm defending Karen Read, I would still be very happy with my position as long as I have those ARCA experts. If I've got those ARCA experts, then I think that you can even, I think you can even make the case that the Commonwealth has not even proved that it's more likely than not that she hit him, because you've got these experts saying that she didn't. So I would still take my chances if I was Karen Read, if I was defending Karen Read, even in the civil case. So, but again, we haven't seen Brian Welcher yet, so I really don't want to talk until I see Brian Welcher and see how convincing he is in reconstructing this accident. So, but yes, she will have to fight against the civil case. Betty Swallock says, Jenna Rocco, who sits with Reed family, reported KR is unwell. Well, there we go. UL7 Weenie, why is the defense burdening itself with trying to prove a conspiracy, pointing to the dog and attempting to establish Higgins' motive instead of focusing on the lack of car collision, the ARCA witnesses? So this is really the question. Now, I will say that the more that you can chip away at the Commonwealth's theory in this case, the better it is. So you don't, again, I don't think that they should be running head on into the conspiracy. I don't think they should be running head on that this is their defense. But I think it's okay for them to bring up the fact that there could have been a motive here for Brian Higgins to commit this crime, and also the fact that the investigation, the investigation was lacking because they did not investigate Brian Higgins the way that they should have. They should have investigated Brian Higgins better or more. And therefore, that's also a point that you can make to the jury. Say, look, we don't know what happened. I'm not telling you that Brian Higgins absolutely committed this murder. I don't know, but he wasn't investigated properly, and he destroyed his phone. So yes, you on top of that, you have the ARCA experts who say that this collision never happened, and it's against science and physics. Also, you have the fact that this police investigation was wholly inadequate, and they just let this guy Brian Higgins get off without anything. And it's very possible that if they would have followed that lead, he would have been a real suspect. But because he works for the ATF, because he's that thin blue line or thick blue wall, well, that's why he didn't get anywhere. So I think both arguments can work. I've always maintained that the defense should not embrace the conspiracy as much as some of the people on the Free Karen Read side do. I don't think they should embrace it, let's say, like Turtle Boy does. But what I think that they should do is still bring out the points and just point to the fact that these are possibilities that could have happened. I don't know what happened, which just leads us back to reasonable doubt, but not to try to convince the jury that there's absolutely conspiracy here. So I agree with you somewhat in this comment. Michelle says, all the jury needs to know is nobody saw him on that lawn. He wasn't there all night. This is unreal. And that is, again, like that is one of the points that I keep coming back to. I've mentioned it many times when I was watching during the first trial. We're seeing it again play out in the second trial. And that is that nobody saw him. Nobody saw his body there, which is really fantastic. I mean, it's just, it's unbelievable. All those people would leave the house and there wasn't so much snow on the ground at that point. And not one person saw his body, including, by the way, Brian Higgins, whose Jeep was parked on the side of the road. Literally, it was parked right in front of the house, which he would literally be like, 15 feet away from the body? He walks the entire length of the driveway down to his vehicle, gets into his vehicle while he's looking in the same direction. Using your peripheral vision, he would have seen him 10 feet in his peripheral vision, 10 feet off the curb, and he didn't see him. So that is a real problem for the Commonwealth. Kristen from Manhattan says, Brother Counsel was amazing on NBC last night. I hope they keep asking you back. Okay, well, I mean, I am in touch with one of the senior producers there, and he said that they like me. So I'm assuming they'll invite me back. So, I've been on there almost every week so far. So we'll see. I'm sure if they hear from the people that the people want to see me, then, they'll bring me back. Here's the AH Edgecliff, 5/13/2025, 9:34 and 47 seconds. When we hear a time in this trial, it gets a little bit like there's seconds attached to the minutes and the hours. 9:34 and 47 seconds. Like we're talking about, but the truth is in this case, actually, when it comes to exactly what happened at 12:31 and 12:32 and 5 seconds, whatever it is, it's actually very important in this case. So seconds matter, especially when you're dealing with a death and a possible murder. So, continuing with the comment, 9:34:47. Brennan just re-entered the courthouse with a cup of coffee and a small bag. 5:13:25, 9:33. 01. We do not know who is scheduled to testify today. We have been anticipating that. Carrie says, look up dog bites. I had the exact ones when a dog bites me. When I was roller skating, he chased me and nabbed me. And I think that we're going to be hearing soon from John's niece and nephew because of that order that came out recently. There was an order saying that the media is obviously not allowed to record the niece and nephew's testimony. So. Oh, Nick Stefanik says sweater is the Canadian way of saying jersey. I never knew that. And I live so close to Canada. And in fact, I actually spent 2 summers in Toronto in a camp there. And I played a lot of hockey there. I never knew that sweater is the way that Canadians refer to as jersey. But the Canadians, they're just they refer to things differently sometimes. Stroll Kaplan says, surprised in yesterday's testimony that Jackson didn't have him speculate that those were dog wounds. He really didn't push hard on that. Well, the reason is because he's not an expert. He can't say that. He's not an expert on dog wounds. You need a doctor, or according to Judge Cannoni, you don't just need a doctor, or you could be a dog behavior expert. But you can't just be a police officer. You can't be a police officer. That's why even the grass stains. Remember, there was an objection about the grass stains. You know why? Because when you're a police, you have to say, what appear to be grass stains. The same thing when it comes to blood, by the way. Ever notice in the when you have a police officer on the stand and he's talking about blood, he doesn't say I saw blood there. He says I saw a blood-like substance, because the point is that he's not an expert to say that it's absolutely blood. So that's why he didn't ask him specifically about the wounds to his arm, whether they're from a dog or not. Okay, just going through the chat. Seeing what else we can talk about here. And I'm way behind. So I should really just jump ahead here. What's this? I spoke about the civil case. I see there's some questions about the civil case. Like I said, I would take Karen Reed's position in a heartbeat with those ARCA experts. I'd be very comfortable representing her as defending in the civil case. Even though the burden is much lower, I would still be very comfortable with that. Caterina Valento, after the trial, can the defense do anything to clear their names after Bev said he deliberately misled the court? Not really. It's in the record. It's an order. If there is some sort of sanction that Judge Cannoni imposes on them, they could appeal it, and they can argue to the Court of Appeals about whether Judge Cannoni was correct or not. And then if the Court of Appeals agrees with them, then they can reverse the sanction and maybe in their order explain why actually they didn't mislead the court. So that's the extent of what they can do. If Judge Cannoni does not order any sanctions, there's really not much that they can really do. I mean, like, what are they going to just appeal the fact that she had that finding? I mean, you could appeal any order, but if there's no sanction attached to it, and they're not going to appeal it just so that the Court of Appeals can say, no, you're wrong, and they didn't do anything wrong. And in fact, like we spoke about, is that Judge Cannoni, if those are the findings that she had, she may have a duty to report them to a state bar. Okay. If you, as an attorney or a judge, find that any lawyer violated some of the rules of professional conduct, then you are required to report them. We're required to snitch on each other. Okay. That's part of our rules of professional responsibility, unfortunately. So we don't like to. So the last thing a lawyer wants to do is report another lawyer to the bar. Usually it's reported by clients or people that just don't like us, So there's probably people on both sides that are reporting both attorneys to their respective state bars because they just don't like them. And 99% of the time, those complaints go nowhere. When you have a judge, it's a different question. It's a different story. So, but again, the rule is that a lawyer or judge is required to report another lawyer who they feel or they found did not follow the rules of professional conduct or professional responsibility. So she may have a duty at some point, if that's what her findings were, that she has a duty to report them to the state bar. And then they'll have to defend against that. And the jury is still out about whether she's going to eventually impose any sort of sanction. She may still impose a sanction at the conclusion of the trial. Maybe she feels like I can't impose a sanction now because, it'll maybe take away from their ability to defend Karen Reed, and she doesn't want it to be an appealable issue, but we still may see that. Bonnie Lee, can Karen go after the state if she is found not guilty? Well, we had my brother, Solomon Radner, who is a national trial lawyer, has filed civil rights cases in like 30 different states or something. And he said that she would have a case against the state and against some of these state actors. So yes, if she gets acquitted, he said that she definitely can pursue a civil claim against some of the state actors here and possibly the state as well. So same question from Sarah, I see. But according to national trial lawyer, brother counsel, she will be able to sue the state. YM says, what does it say? TLT pieces could have fallen off when responding AM. Sorry, I don't understand that so well. I'm sorry. Michelle says, saw no body, but saw pieces of plastic. Come on. Well, nobody who left the house said that they saw pieces of plastic. So, Betty Swallows, jumpers for the win. Okay, I'm not sure what that is. But, okay, look, we're getting closer to 11 o'clock. So if anything's happening at 11 o'clock, we can still be on and see what happens at 11 o'clock. Okay, I keep going to school. What is your opinion concerning the new emergency motions filed to the First Circuit, urging them to enforce their ruling by Mark Randozzo? I did not see so much. I took a quick glance of it. I really didn't have chance to read the entire opinion and everything. I'm doing so much trial coverage, and then I'm also doing the recaps, and then I'm going on NBC Boston, and then playing hockey. So I'm doing a lot of other things, and I can't get to everything. So I was not able to review all that, and I apologize. Nick Stefanik said grass stains on the jeans, a clear indication that JOK was dragged through the yard. Well, that was exactly what Alan Jackson brought out during his cross-examination, that maybe he was dragged. And that's why you see the grass stains there. And and Buchanan said, well, then I'd expect to see linear grass stains on both sides. And he said, well, maybe he was dragged on an angle. And maybe he was only dragged a little bit. Maybe they carried him for a big part of it. Who knows? SP74, Higgins' motive is laughable. A 5-minute flirt. Well, I mean, I think people would argue with you that this was not just a 5-minute thing. I mean, they had text messaging going on for a little while. He definitely seemed interested, and he just wanted her to come out and say, I want to sleep with you. And she wasn't doing that because that's not usually how the game is played. So he wanted direct instructions from her, and she was just kind of playing it like a little bit more, I like you. I think you're hot. Come over to my house. Let's go out for a drink. What do you think? Yes, I know what happens when I'm 42 years old. I'm inviting somebody over to my house alone for a drink. But she just didn't come out and say it directly, and he wanted her to, I guess. And then at some point, when she kind of seemed like she got over it, he did not seem like he was so over anything. He wanted to continue some sort of relationship there, and it feels like she just kind of didn't. So I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't call it a 5-minute flirt. It was a couple weeks, and then it seems like Karen Reed kind of lost interest. Anyway, that was my take on it. Realty with Krista Marie. Brother Counsel, just if they find her not guilty to me, I don't morally feel right about that because I want her charges to be dropped. I need them to go investigate the actual murder morally. Okay, well, listen, if they find her not guilty, it's the same thing as the charges being dropped. It's literally the same thing. It's better because when you drop charges, you can go ahead and bring them again. Here, they cannot bring her again. Double jeopardy attaches. She's completely scot-free. So it would actually be better for her for them to come back with a not guilty, and then for them to go investigate the actual murderers. It's just everything's stale at this point. This happened in 2022. This happened over 3 years ago, and there's been a lot of changes since then. They never searched the house. They couldn't get Brian Higgins. They didn't search or extract Brian Higgins' phone. So there's some problems with trying to just do an investigation now. Wanted them to open up a cold case and just keep it cold for the next 30 years. It's just I don't see anything happening. I'm sorry. If that's what you feel morally, it's just that's what the reality is. That's where we are right now. And again, realty with Krista Marie. Listen, this is just as bad as Secret Service. There's too many f-ups to make it not be purposeful, and this is part of the point that Solomon was making. That there's just too many things going on here to say that this is just not purposeful. Like the fact that Proctor discovered these big pieces of taillight the day after Buchanan was there, and he didn't find them. And there's a lot of similar situations where either you're this was Solomon's thoughts. Either you're so incredibly incompetent and stupid, or this was purposeful. and there's some sort of cover up. Take your pick. And that was Salman's thoughts. And I know I'm way behind on the chats. I'm sorry. There's just no way to catch up here. Programmer, hello. I was curious about the MEC interview. Well, what were you curious about? I did it. You can go check it out on NBC Boston's website. Trisha Winder says they sound like an ophthalmologist's dream, not seeing JOK's body. Wow, bro. See, you can have your 5 minutes of fame on NBC. Go, bro. 5 minutes of fame. I think I was on there for like 2 minutes. And this is my third time on there. So maybe all the minutes together would equal 5 minutes. So maybe I did get my 5 minutes of fame there. But you know what? I like my fame on this channel also because I got all my peeps here. And we have a good time here. Storm Dancer, up by the council. Why would there be warrants that are not signed? How can KR be charged with murder if the ME did not say it was murder? Well, again, it's not just up to the ME. The ME, you're talking about the medical examiner. The medical examiner can say that it's undetermined based on her investigation or her review of the body or her diagnosis. I'm missing the word right now, but whatever she was doing, right? It's limited to her view of the body, but there can be other factors that can point to murder. And even if the medical examiner cannot determine based on the injuries that this was a murder or that it was undetermined, but the Commonwealth can still present other evidence which show that this actually was a murder. So that's why. Sleuthy Goosey is back and says seconds matters to the timeline. That's true. And Realty says seconds matter, and words matter. As we heard from Alan Jackson, words do matter. Gravel Gertie says, can we just say ARCA hired by the feds that reportedly unequivocally no collision? In fact, impossible to be a collision that caused John O'Keefe's death? Well, that's exactly the defense's case. And this is why also when you're a prosecutor in this case and you see the ARCA experts and what they're going to say, you got to think long and hard whether you're going to bring this case and whether you can ethically bring this case. And we understand, like, you know, in the civil world, we understand that you can basically get an expert to say almost anything that you want, right? In a criminal case, it's a little bit different, right? Because the burden is so much higher, and you have a certain ethical duty to only prosecute a case which you believe that this person committed, right? The person committed the crime. And when you have these ARCA experts who unequivocally say that this collision never happened, and then you go and you hire your own expert to say that it did happen, again, you know, this is where the questions arise about is that an ethical way to prosecute a case? So this is what's bothering some people. KH says a body of men holding themselves accountable to nobody ought not to be trusted by anybody. Right? I mean, it's all about accountability. If you cannot be accountable to anybody, well, then how can you be trusted? And that's exactly what KH is saying from Thomas Paine. And that's true. And then, of course, what they'll argue back is that, well, they are accountable. They are accountable to certain powers that be, you know, the police. But, I mean, that's a good point. YM says Taylor dropped at John O'Keefe's site after hitting at home. Right. So that's what Karen reads. That's what the suggestion here is. The little pieces after crash at her house. Yes, I mean that would be, well, you know, yeah, well, I mean they came to 34 Fairview with Kerry Roberts. Kerry Roberts was the one who drove them there, right? So yeah, I mean you have to figure out how those pieces of taillight got there. And by the way, whoever said they call a sweater a jersey, I'm Canadian. We call it jersey. So you are separated, says. Well, we're almost coming up to the 11 o'clock hour, so we'll see what happens at 11 o'clock. Maybe there'll be something. Nick Stefanix, Brian Higgins, the only witness to bring an attorney to his interview. Consciousness of guilt. Well, that's exactly what Alan Jackson was trying to bring out. Why would Brian Higgins need a lawyer with him? Why would he need a lawyer with him when he's getting interviewed? And I will say in his defense, and I will quote my esteemed brother, Solomon Radner, national trial lawyer, brother counsel's brother counsel. And he said the following line. He said, if you're guilty, you need a lawyer. If you're innocent, you definitely need a lawyer. So, just the fact that somebody has a lawyer, shouldn't automatically show consciousness of guilt. It should be fear of incarceration. So, I know that's what Alan Jackson's trying to bring out, but you can understand why someone can be nervous, and therefore, if they're innocent, they don't want to get charged with a crime either. So you go get yourself a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't get a lawyer. Anytime that police want to talk to you, I would say, don't talk to them, get a lawyer. That's what I would tell you always. No matter who you are, no matter what the situation is, no matter if you are as innocent as the fallen snow, as the driven snow, whatever. If you're as completely 100% innocent, still don't talk to the police without a lawyer. Okay, that's why we exist. We want to make sure that the innocent stay innocent. So, I'm not going to hold it against anybody for getting a lawyer. The Great 99 says they don't care that she's innocent. They texted what they would do if she didn't plead. And remember, this is referring to most likely the group text, right? We had the group text with Matt McCabe, Jennifer McCabe, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and they were saying that if Karen Reed pleads, then this all goes away. If she doesn't plead, then this is going to be, I forgot the words. I forgot the exact words that they said, but then it's going to become a circus, like what we're seeing play out in front of us. So some people feel like, hey, that's exactly what they're saying. Saying hopefully she's just going to plead, and they'll give her some sort of sweetheart deal, and then the pressure will be off. But if she doesn't plead, which she didn't do, then things get interesting. And for those who are joining the chat now, wondering why court is canceled today, I see that people are still asking that question in the chat. That there's been reporting that there's unforeseen circumstances that that court was canceled today, and some people are reporting that Karen Reed is not feeling well. We know that she has Crohn's and MS, which is not pleasant. So that could be what's going on. But I think there's supposed to be something going on at 11 o'clock. So we'll keep hanging out here till 11 o'clock, I guess. And if anything happens at 11, we'll play it. All right, brother counsel. News tonight: the Karen Reed trial was halted today for unforeseen circumstances. In other news, U.S. workers' productivity surges 200%. More at 11. Yeah, we can all get some work done. But look what we're doing instead of doing work. We're hanging out and talking about Karen Reed, even when there's no trial. Farron Young says Arca conmen. Arca conmen, $29,000 paid by defense. Wake up. So I guess Farron is saying that they're conmen. But the problem with that argument, Farron, is that when they conducted their reconstruction, they weren't being paid by the defense. They were hired by the federal government, the DOJ, the FBI. And you would think that the FBI and DOJ gave them some materials and said, figure out whether this is feasible or not without pushing any sort of conclusion on them. So, yes, the defense did eventually have to pay them for their testimony. But when they performed their actual reconstruction, they were not in touch at all with the defense. So that's a little bit of issue with your argument there. But for the people thinking that the reason why this court is canceled is because the prosecution is dropping the case, I can almost assure you 100% that that's not the reason. It's not because they're dropping the case. They're not. If they haven't dropped the case up until now, why would you think they dropped the case now? It don't make no sense to me. At this point, just finish with the case. YM gifted 5 Brother Counsel memberships. Thank you very much for that, YM. And Pro Gamer is back. How is it proven that the taillight pieces could not have been planted? Thanks. Well, what they did show, and again, this is assuming that the jury believes Kevin O'Hara and believes Buchanan. If that's all true, then what happened here is that the CERT team was there. They arrived on scene. Oh, gosh. People get upset when I miss minutes here. But the CERT team arrived at some time around 4:56, I think it was, p.m. And wait a second. It was either 4:56 or 5:27. One of those. You know what? Let me go look it up, because then people are going to get upset that I actually got the wrong. I got the wrong time, so I should have it in my notes here. Okay. Just to be 100% sure. Here we go. They headed to Fairview at 4:13 p.m. They arrived at Fairview at 4:56 p.m. Okay. One member arrived at 4:54 p.m. And they started the search at 5:24 p.m. Okay. So according to Kevin O'Hara from the CERT team, they started the search at 5:24 p.m. The Lexus did not arrive at the Sally Port till 5:35 p.m. Okay, so if Kevin O'Hara was there, and we believe him and we trust him, and he said that they began the search at 5:24 p.m., now they did not find any pieces till 5:45 p.m. So the first piece of tail was found at 5:45 p.m. So you're right that technically speaking, the Lexus was at the Sally Port before 5:45 p.m. It was there 5:30, 5:35 p.m. And then there was enough time for Proctor, let's say, to take pieces of taillight and bring it over to 34 Fairview before they found the first piece of taillight. If you're going to believe Kevin O'Hara's testimony was that he was there at 5:24 and nobody came into the scene. Nobody was there dropping off pieces of taillight while he was there. So this is where those first 6-7 pieces of taillight that were discovered in the street, by the way. And again, here's the other issue here. The other issue is the consistency where they're finding the pieces of taillight. Okay, they found 6 or 7 pieces of taillight within the same 1 or 2 feet radius of each other. So all these 6-7 pieces were very tight. They're all connected. They're all right near each other. And they're in the street. Now, somehow 10 feet away from there, near the flagpole, there is 40 odd pieces of taillight. Okay, that's a question. But in terms of the fact, how could Proctor ever have planted those first 6 or 7 pieces of taillight? If the jury believes Kevin O'Hara that he's saying the truth and that he's trustworthy and that he's credible, and they believe Buchanan, that it was just not possible for Proctor to get there. They didn't seize, or they didn't bring the vehicle to the Sally Port until 5:35 p.m. And it was on the tow truck before then. So, and what's the other suggestion here? The other suggestion is that Proctor, when he came to Karen Reed's parents' house in Dighton, that he quickly went over there and took some pieces of taillight and then put them in his pocket and then went to 34 Fairview and Buchanan lied about it. I mean, it's going to sound a little bit crazy then. So this is what came out for the prosecution, which is why it's helpful for the prosecution, at least at this point, that at least the first 6-7 pieces of taillight that were found at 34 Fairview were not planted. So that's where that comes from. Okay. So again, this is, of course, if you believe all the witnesses who testified so far. All right. Thank you very much for that. $5. Pro Gamer. The team was there, but they did not find anything before someone came over from their CPD Sallyport. I've heard multiple times. So there was Connor Keefe, whose testimony was that he was a Massachusetts State Police trooper, and he came to the scene to help process the scene at 34 Fairview when the CERT team was there. So again, if you're going to believe everyone and assume that no one's lying on the stand and that they're not trying to hide for each other and cover for each other. So if you're going to believe certain people, so then you're going to believe Kevin O'Hara that he was there. And yes, he did testify that there were two other police officers who arrived, some Canton Police Department and some from the Massachusetts State Police. And one of them was Connor Keefe, but he said that they were not conducting the search. The search is being conducted by Kevin O'Hara, who's watching over the search. And he is now again, okay. So there were certain points in Alan Jackson was saying, well, weren't you looking down? You know, is it conceivable that somebody may have put a piece there? Yeah, maybe, you know, but his testimony was that nobody came into the scene to drop off pieces of taillight. So again, if you're going to believe Kevin O'Hara, even if there was a Massachusetts State Police, Connor Keefe, who was there watching or processing or whatever, then there's going to be a problem with believing that Proctor planted it. So that's where they get that from. Again, I'm not going to take away the fact that there's still a question here that even if those 6-7 pieces of taillight were there, how did the other 40 pieces end up 10 feet away? You know, what type of smash would obliterate the taillight in this way and cause this pattern of taillight to be shattered all over the place? But maybe that's something that we're going to see from Brian Welcher. Maybe Brian Welcher is going to explain how this is all possible. Now, part of the problem here also is that, remember, there's no cross coordinates. So they didn't map out exactly where the pieces of taillight ended up. So if they would have seen, okay, we got 6-7 pieces over there, we got these 3 pieces over there, these 4 pieces over there. Okay, let's try to reconstruct this. Then, okay, maybe, you know, they would be a little bit more believable about how this all happened. So, but that's why the Commonwealth's case, at least for the 6-7 pieces, is a lot stronger than the other 40 pieces. And remember, the other problems where Buchanan was there when there's practically no snow on the ground, and he didn't discover these big pieces of red plastic taillight. Those are problems. But the first 6-7 pieces, you're going to have to go out on a limb and say someone's not saying the truth there. So I'm just telling you what what the theories here are. YM, can't wait for the defense. AJ has been masterful on cross so far. I agree with you. Vet prosecutors are taking notes, getting free lessons. Yeah. I mean, look, Alan Jackson has been masterful. He's been amazing. Sarah Tree's question. I had an elementary teacher, Mrs. Radner. Wonder if any relation. You probably did. Where did you go to school? Because my mother was an elementary teacher for like 40 years. So if you're in Michigan, she taught at a few public schools, and then she eventually taught at Hill Day School for like 20 years. So I don't know how old you are, but she's been teaching elementary school for a very, very long time. So it's quite possible. I think Sarah is from Michigan. So it's quite possible that my mother was your teacher. And by the way, my mother was my teacher also. She actually taught us a period when I was in 8th grade. Or as Canadians say, grade 8. So again, I mean, if you're just joining us now, I heard that there's going to be something at 11 o'clock. So I'll see if everything's doing then. Let me see if anything's going on there. Give me a second. Okay, well, I got one of the feeds up, and we'll see if anything happens at 11 o'clock. Well, let me see what other questions we have here going on. VS is back. Good morning. And VS, I'm just wondering if you did your homework last night. We all know what it was, so it's time to come clean. Real T with Krista Marie. Blurry Lights. How do I pose a question for Brother Counsel? Do I need to start with a QQ or anything? It's always easier as I'm going through to put your question marks there or your QQ so that I can identify it much easier, because there's a lot of chat going on here, which is great. But in order for it to help me, that would definitely be easier. The Great 99 wants to know, is Solomon joining the chat again today? I hope so. Although I told you, like I said, Solomon's quite busy. So sometimes he'll but he can do like a million things at once also. So like he'll be like preparing for trial, watching a trial, on the phone, writing a motion, and at the same time paying attention to me. So that's just the kind of brain that he has, which I guess you kind of need when you're a trial lawyer. So maybe he'll pop in and throw out a few chats also just to rile everybody up. Chaim Budnick, was the rear of the Lexus and of the fragments tested for DNA. So what was tested for DNA was that there was a little here that was frozen to the back of the Lexus for, they tested that here for DNA. I don't think anything else was tested in terms of the back of the Lexus. RSMM11, I don't think flirting is a motive. Excuse me, for premeditated murder, maybe a drunken conflict, but not offing his homeboy. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to say that this is premeditated murder. I think that the suggestion here by Alan Jackson was that it could be that there's some sort of confrontation about Karen Reed. And I saw all those text messages, and all you ladies out there can read the text messages yourself also. Maybe you know how women work more than I do. You probably do. But what I understood from it is that Karen Reed, she got in her head this idea of hooking up with Brian Higgins, and for maybe the first day or two she was interested, and then it just kind of lost interest. Maybe she just felt like, what am I doing? I've got a good guy, John O'Keefe. Yeah, maybe I'm mad at him because I think that he cheated on me, but maybe I just need to talk to him about it or whatever. Like, I'm not interested in just hooking up with Brian Higgins so much anymore. And she kept in touch with him, but like it just kind of looked like she kind of lost some of the interest there. And Brian Higgins, from my perspective, did not lose interest at all. He was still pursuing it. He was still trying to like make certain comments to bring up this idea of like, coming over to her house and being in the same bed and, things like that, where like, it just seems like he was really trying to push the issue a little bit more. And she was kind of a little bit more standoffish. And, but I think he was still interested. So therefore there could have been some sort of confrontation there. And then one thing led to the next. I don't think this is premeditated. I don't think this is premeditated at all. I don't think that, as Alan Jackson is saying either. But the suggestion here is that perhaps they confronted each other, or he confronted John, or they had some sort of discussion about it. And then one thing led to the next, to a push, to a shove, to a little boys fighting, to, oh my gosh, I just pushed him down the stairs, or, oh my gosh, look what just happened. And we're all drunk. And this is what happened. So I think that's really more the suggestion of what happened here. Erica wants to know, what are we going to all go do today? It's weird to not have court. LOL. I guess I really have to work. Right. I think maybe we should get to work today. But I'll wait till 11 o'clock just to see if anything's going on in court. Gravel Gertie says, Higgins is like a scorned woman, of which we know hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Betty Swogs, Higgins collecting a Faraday bag from CPD fits the taillight from when JOK's phone data goes black for 4 hours. Fits the something. When JOK data goes black for 4 hours. So did he get a Faraday bag? Is that what the suggestion is? That maybe Higgins got a Faraday bag? Okay. YM says Higgins' video was disturbing. Looks nefarious or nefarious. And again, people are asking about why there's no trial today. So the answer is that unforeseen circumstances, there's no trial. Some people have been reporting that Karen Reed is not feeling well. Maybe she's her Crohn's acted up or MS. So that's why. Araceli Padilla, let's get Brother Counsel some jeans. Well, you guys don't really see my pants anyway, you know, unless I start doing the show standing up. Would you like that? Here's some more reporting. Karen asked for a late start because she's having some health issues today, and the court decided to take the whole day off. Possible. Real Tea with Krista Marie. Brother Counsel, are you defense attorney? I do mostly civil work these days. So I do mostly civil litigation, which includes civil rights and personal injury. That's mostly what I do. I do do a little bit of criminal defense, but not much. Not really much. And even my brother Solomon mostly concentrates on civil rights, although he also does still. My brother Solomon used to do a lot of criminal defense, like solely like that's all his focus was. And then that kind of transitioned to civil rights mostly. He still handles some criminal defense, but mostly civil rights. So we're both really civil litigators at this point. Realty with Krista Marie. Question: what would happen if you're defending a client and you say you're the prosecution or the state in the middle of the case, you realize that your client is guilty? What are the options? Okay, first of all, every single person has a constitutional right to effective assistance of counsel. Doesn't matter whether they actually committed the crime or not. The state, the prosecutor, the system that we have, they have to prove their case. And even if your client is 100% guilty, the prosecution still has the burden to prove their case. And he has the right to effective assistance of counsel. And that constitutional right is more important than any single individual case. Now, I don't ever want to know if my client is guilty. I don't really ask. I don't really care. When my brother Solomon, also, this has been his advice always from the beginning, is not to ask your client if they're innocent or guilty. You just tell your client, okay, what's our defense going to be? What is our defense? What is the defense that we're going to be putting on? Because you don't really want to get into that. And especially if it comes to calling a witness, you're not allowed to put a witness on the stand who you know is going to lie. So if your client tells you, I am 100% guilty, then, and they usually don't do that, by the way. So if they tell you I'm 100% guilty, you're not allowed to put them on the stand ever for them to say that they're not guilty. So that can create a real problem. So you don't really, from what I've been mentored from definitely from my brother Solomon, is that you don't ask your client whether they're guilty or innocent. You talk to them and say, okay, how are we going to defend this case? And you defend the case as to the best of your ability, because every single individual person, you are representing really the Constitution in a whole. And that's more important than any individual case. Can you please explain what they are charging her with and her sentence if found guilty? They're charging her with second-degree murder. Okay, there's charging her with three different things. The first one is second-degree murder. Second one is involuntary manslaughter as a result of involuntary manslaughter. I think as a result of DUI. And number three is leaving the scene. Okay, if she's found guilty of second-degree murder, she can be facing a life sentence. Okay, so she is potentially facing what my brother likes to call death in prison. Okay, well, here's the question, Realty with Chris Marie. I really feel like at this point, Brennan might start to realize then maybe they got the wrong guy. If that happens, what are the options for you, the prosecutor, morally? Okay, so this is the problem. You're not, if you're a prosecutor, you're not supposed to prosecute a case that you believe the person's innocent or that you're not, that person's not, you can't prove the person guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You're not supposed to do that. So, yeah, that's an issue. Coffee Cape just became a new member. Thank you for that. And by the way, I am keeping an eye on the live stream in case something happens at 11 o'clock. We will jump right to the live stream. Matthew Mladezinski, does anyone know what part of Michigan BC practices in? Yes. First of all, I practice in a lot of different areas, excuse me, a lot of different jurisdictions in Michigan itself. My office is located in Southfield, which is in Oakland County, but I've handled cases in Oakland County, Wayne County, Washington County, Genesee County, Macomb County. I've handled cases within, let's say, an hour and a half drive of Southfield. That's usually where the extends to, but that's where I generally practice. Solomon practices all over the country. So if you have any sort of civil rights case throughout the entire country, the person you should be calling is Solomon Radner. And you can be emailing me if you have any sort of case at brothercounsel99@gmail.com. Okay. So any inquiries for Solomon or for myself and my father, the legend, his number is 1-800-I-SUE-BIG. Okay. That's my father's number. 1-800-I-SUE-BIG. Swamp Beer X, Bro of the Council, did you see your fellow counselor's idea of a green grass theory by Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic? I did not. Not sure what that was. And I'm really behind. I'm sorry on the chat here. But look, it's good we can all get together anyway and talk about Karen Reed, because we can't just kind of just go a day without it. Here's what Selbornegin. Sorry about the name. I think John O'Keefe actually threw the cocktail glass at Karen Reed's Lexus, and that's how it initially cracked. And that's why they found the taillight pieces on the road and the rest were planted. That is something that I thought about also. I really wonder whether he actually was threw the glass at the taillight. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they did get into some sort of fight in the car, and he walks out and throws the glass at the taillight while he's walking into the house. You know, it's a theory, and maybe that's how the 6-7 pieces ended up there. There's a rumor that the gathering was a swingers gathering too. Are you talking about the 34 Fairview gathering? Okay, well, let's see. See what else we have here. It's 11 o'clock, and I've got the other stream up, and I don't see anything happening quite yet. So if something happens, we'll go to it. In the meantime, we can still looking at some of the comments here. Well, look at this from Arson11. BC has the most respectable chat. So many unnecessary personal appearance comments, etc. on the others. But we have the best chat. There's no questions about it. Here's from VS. I did speak to Carl, assuming you're talking about Carl Steinbeck, and he did state that he'll reach out to you. Also, can you work on a case out of California, civil case, also civil rights case, two different cases? Solomon is the civil rights expert. He's the guy that you want. And yes, he can work out of any state. If the case has merit, he can definitely work out of whatever state it is. He just has to pro hoc into the state. He's already pro hocked into so many different states. It shouldn't really be a big deal. So if the case is worthwhile, he'll do it. So just email the inquiry to me, brothercounsel99@gmail.com, and I'll forward it to him. So and then he'll be in touch with whoever it is. So in terms of Carl Steinbeck, I'd love to talk to him. So if you have some sort of interaction with him and he's willing to reach out to me, that'd be great. My 5th grade teacher was Mrs. Radner at Meadowbrook Elementary. She was the best teacher I ever had. Because of her, I won the President's Award for Academic Improvement. I'm 37. Wow. Well, let me ask her right now. I'm going to send her a text. And I don't know if Sarah's your real name. I'm going to ask her if she taught there. At Meadowbrook. All right, let's see if she gets back to me. I'll let you know, Sarah. Jessica Lee said, I taught 6th grade earth science for 7 years, then high school for 3 years. Stay-at-home mom now. I bet you like being a stay-at-home mom. Janet Smith, I disagree, BC. KR wanted a hookup and he said no while she's with JOK. She was leading BH on. I would bet money she was giving signals at the bar. I mean, if you look at the bar, it looks like she couldn't be less interested in anybody but Brian Higgins. I mean, like there's, I mean, from the waterfall videos at least, it looks like she doesn't even look in his direction. He keeps glancing over at her, it seems like, but she is like just not giving him any sort of attention at all. So I don't know. I'm not sure about if she was giving signals at the bar. And again, from the text messages, when she would ghost him, he would send out some sort of text like, "Hey, you ghosted me," and she'd be like, "Okay, you want to text me? Text me." You know, like, you know, kind of like, "You want to talk to me? Go ahead." So I don't know. That was my take on it. Okay, you know, I'm sure everyone can have different takes on their text messages, but. Well, do you guys want to see Proctor's testimony in the first trial? Is that what we should play while we're waiting for everybody? While everyone's here, or should we let you guys actually get some work done today? Miss CC says, sad that 99% of the people on here are conspiracy theorists and FKR cult. Free yourself, people. And Miss CC, I'll just tell you, I mean, I look, the way that I look at this is that I'm not a free Karen Reed. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. All I care about is reasonable doubt. Is there reasonable doubt here or not? And that's what I've always stressed to my entire channel. It's not about being a conspiracy theorist. I would always recommend that you stay away from the conspiracy. And you can definitely point out certain parts, the lack of the investigation. I think there's some elements of not investigating certain people. But I think that what people are seeing is reasonable doubt. I think that's mostly what's people are seeing and having questions with certain conduct, like destroying phones, certain explanations, like the deletions and butt dials and butt answers, not seeing the body. I think that these are a lot of very, very fair questions. And I think that the danger with this case, and I've warned you guys from the beginning with this case, I think the danger with this case is that people think you have to choose one or the other. Is it either it's a conspiracy or Karen Reed did it? And that's the trap where people find themselves and they feel like they have to choose one or the other. And that's why the people on the side that Karen Reed is guilty say, how can you believe this crazy conspiracy? And I think the answer is that really it's not one or the other. It's, did Karen Reed do it? And is there proof beyond a reasonable doubt? That's the only question that we should be thinking about, not whether there's a conspiracy. So just kind of ignore the conspiracy, try to ignore this, cultish type of feeling, and just try to look at this objectively. Was this investigation done appropriately? Are there questions? Was there some level of a cover-up because certain police officers were involved? How is it that nobody saw the dead body there? ARCA experts said there's no collision between the car and Karen Reed. What actually happened? I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what happened. I don't know what happened. But the problem is that the evidence that the Commonwealth presented, definitely in the first case, didn't explain what happened. So I think this is what happens with certain people. They just say, okay, well, if you believe that Karen Reed is innocent, that means that you automatically agree with the conspiracy and all the parts and all the people were involved in the conspiracy. And that's the fallacy here. I think that what you have to really concentrate on is, did the Commonwealth prove their case? Did they prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, or do I have a doubt about whether Karen Reed actually committed this murder by running him over with the car? And once you have doubt, well, then she should be free. I mean, that's just the way the system works in America. So it's not about whether, well, if she didn't do it, then there must be a conspiracy. That's just a logical fallacy that a lot of people are falling for, and which is why you get, people to think that, oh, there's so many people on this other side who believe in the conspiracy. I never believed in the conspiracy, and I still think that she should have been acquitted in the first case, in the first trial, because they just didn't prove their case. That's all. That's all there is to it. And now we have another trial, so they're still welcome, and I'm still waiting for them to prove their case. They're putting on their case, but I've never embraced a conspiracy, as I've always told my channel, and I've always warned against. Don't embrace a conspiracy. Just view the evidence and see whether the evidence proves the case beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's it. That's really the extent of your analysis, and that's really where it should end. What actually happened in this case, we're not investigators in this case. We don't have the resources to investigate this case. So there's a million theories, and it doesn't bother me what the theories are. I go, you can theorize all day long if you want, but that's not really what bothers me. What I care more about is, did they prove their case? So I think that a lot of people are being bunched into this conspiracy group when really all they're saying is that the Commonwealth didn't prove their case. But the people on the other side say, well, if they didn't prove their case, that means automatically that you believe the conspiracy. And that's just simply a logical fallacy. That's incorrect. So I think that's the only point. That's where I fall, at least definitely after the first trial. And we have to see where I fall after the second trial. Like I said, I'm going to go in with an open mind, the same I did in the first trial. And if I'm able to see that the Commonwealth did prove their case, if Brian Welcher is very convincing and he's able to explain how this all happened, then maybe they prove their case. But until that happens, I'm waiting to see. So I have to wait to see all the evidence come in during the second trial. What should happen when no counsel is provided? Well, Multnomah County judge said he doesn't know what to say. They're short on public defenders. I listened to a recording, Sixth Amendment violation. I don't know what you're talking about, but there's a Sixth Amendment guarantee that everyone who's charged with a crime facing jail time gets to get a attorney, effective assistance of counsel. So I have no idea what you're talking about. Everybody gets an effective assistance of counsel. It's a constitutional guarantee. And Smarta Hari says, not a conspiracy, a cover-up. And I think that's how people are framing it, no pun intended, this time around. That this is not a conspiracy, but rather it is a cover-up. And I think that that works a little bit better. And I think that sits a little bit better with people. And I think in some elements, there was some sort of cover-up in the sense that they were protecting certain people from being investigated thoroughly and fully. So not that there is this grand cover-up, but they were looking the other way when it came to certain people. Okay, well, okay, well, look, guys, I mean, I don't see anything happening now in court. I'll take one more look. And if nothing is happening, then we'll just we'll call it a day. Maybe we'll get some work done. I may put out another video today, just maybe breaking down some more testimony. Some sort of recap or some sort of video, and then we'll see if court gets back up tomorrow. So if we start again tomorrow, hopefully we'll start again tomorrow with some more testimony. If not, we'll keep our ears peeled until something actually happens. So until next time, guys, thank you all for joining us today. And if something happens, throughout the day, we'll go live with it. If not, then we'll see you all tomorrow. And check out any other video that we'll put out today. So thanks again, and we'll see you maybe tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Take care, everyone.